Janet didn't say it, but I'm going to guess that beta testers are welcome to speak with her about changing the narrative. So one of the great, beautiful things about doing what I do with Newsgeist, and for doing it for a decade, is that I get to watch the arc of all of these comments and how they evolve and have evolved over the last decade, and it's really fascinating. And particularly, one is around the conversations that have happened around local journalism. And I would say over the last, in the prior maybe 3-4 years, it's the crisis in local journalism, news deserts. These things are all very real, but what I'm beginning to see emerge in some of the topics that we're seeing on the board and some of the topics that were proposed for Ignite Talks tonight was a sense of optimism about how local news can be recreated and what that means in terms of rethinking what local journalism is in the context of community. So the next few talks are really going to touch on that topic. I'm hoping when I look at the boards later tonight, we'll see a lot of these transformed discussions. It's more, I think, optimistic discussions about local news. But to start us off in this conversation right now, I'd like to ask Andrew Ramsammy to join me here on stage and to talk about one of the really challenging issues, which is sustainability in community. So Andrew, here you are. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you. So tonight I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey that we need to think about transforming journalism and becoming more of big C journalism as opposed to big J journalism. So let's think about this journey and where we start. In the beginning. In the beginning, there used to be the town crier. He would go out and tell everyone what was going on in their communities. And from the town crier, we had the printing press. And from the printing press, we went to broadcast. And from broadcast, we went to radio and TV. And from radio and TV, we went to digital and internet and social media. But now we're on the dawn of a new era. But we need to think about communities. And let's ask ourselves, what defines a community? It's not just geographic boundaries. A community is a living, breathing entity. It has a heartbeat. You can feel that heartbeat. And here in Arizona, it's hot. But in other places, it's about schools, it's about our children, it's about local businesses. It's about all the things that you and I consume every day. That's what community is. But what happens when the community stops? When the heartbeat goes away? When a school is placed on a closure list? When a business is shuttered? That cultural hub dies, and it impacts our soul. It impacts us. So that's why we have to move away from big J journalism to big C journalism. Because we're often focusing on broad headlines and passive observations as opposed to doing things that resonate with communities, and we become more intimate. And the model of the teaching hospital, which this very school uses, is something that we should even take a step further. That our communities actually become, our newsrooms actually become community health centers. Places where we diagnose our social ailments and we work collectively to uplift and heal. But in order to do that, we are going to have to reimagine objectivity. It is old, it is tired, and it is white. It is old, it is tired, and it is white. Communities don't think in those terms. They think in terms of like this: engagement, co-creating stories, and looking for narratives that seek solutions. But in order to do that, we also need to think about transparency. We have to walk a path of knowing who we're talking to and what our own biases are, and about being open to new methodologies and constantly inviting the community to come back for feedback. But there's this prophetic warning that we're all concerned about, that democracy dies in darkness. It's not democracy that dies in darkness, it's communities. Communities die in darkness first before democracy dies. So let's think about where the role of the journalist should be. It could be as a person who now just goes from being from an observer to an active participant in the journalism. That they become guardians of our community, that they uplift and amplify voices that often go unheard. You don't have to look pretty far to find it. There are some organizations in this room who are actually doing that very work. This is not theoretical. This is real. So the promise of Big C journalism is that it illuminates pathways, it guides communities out of the shadows, and it shapes a brighter and more connected future. You know, democracy's foundation is community. That is the backbone, the vibrancy of our communities, their stories, their challenges, their triumphs. Where do we live? In community. So, part of this model also includes a new theory of change that I'm working on called economics, which looks at the intersection of economic prosperity, social equity, and journalistic empowerment. It's based on a story that was written in 2009, but it reinforces the crucial interplay that we have to become in being more fair and fiscal in our decisions with communities. So there are challenges, there are tons of hurdles, resistance to change, practicalities of resources, and ensuring that engagement remains authentic. But this is a call to action. If not now, when? Another election? Another government takeover? And remember this, when communities thrive, journalism thrives. Not the other way around.